You're listening to The Angry Designer, where we cut through the industry bull to help frustrated graphic designers survive and thrive.
All right. So what's up, buddy?
Not a whole lot. What's up with you, man?
It feels like this has been a long time, right?
This has been a long time.
It's just, between, our interview episodes and AI and everything else.
Yeah.
This feels good to be here.
It's good to be back, baby.
Yeah, summertime is everybody loses touch.
This is true.
Right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
it's
And
nice
fair
to-
enough. I mean, there's holidays and things like that, and sometimes work's busy, and you just don't get an opportunity. You got the kid thing going on, it's,
On a
it's
regular
hard.
basis.
Yeah,
It does,
it's hard
it does,
I got the band thing, it's hard to get together sometimes, but
Business never stops, though.
that it does not.
Right? I
It
got
does
this
not.
awesome T-shirt that says what? Always be working? Or what? Never be resting?
Never. Yeah.
Oh, those Lincoln boys, I tell
they're
you,
so
eh?
good. They're so good.
Yeah, it was such a great event.
Yes, that was amazing.
So I had an interesting email this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I had an interesting email from an angry designer, which, I think, is the perfect, it was a perfect email considering the topic that we were talking about today, right? And again, love our angry designers. They often, reach in with problems. We try to, give them our opinion. I don't want to say advice, but this is what we've gone through. And again, this, this keeps it safe and sound. And if it worked for us, it could work for you, or you can take parts of it, or you can tell us where to go.
That's it.
I don't care. You're coming asking my opinion. I'm only going to talk about what's worked for us. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
But she's a graphic designer who has a Etsy store.
Oh, nice.
Right. Yeah. And she created some artwork, right, for a customer of hers that used the artwork on these postcards, or maybe they were printed thank you cards or something, right? And again, it's Etsy, right? So Etsy's a little different kind of environment, right? Because often you're buying something other than a digital file. There is digital files on there, and it's not the most common place to hire a graphic designer from. But in this case, she created some finished, thank you cards or postcards of some sort, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I guess a year later, they're reaching out and saying, hey, could we get the artwork for this? Because, we want to print some stickers. And she's like, well, do you want me to print the stickers for you?
Yeah.
It's an Etsy store.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we have a vendor. We've already got somebody who prints stickers. We just want the artwork. So dilemma. They're asking for the physical artwork, the digital files, the working files. And that's what she was reaching out about. She's like, what do I do? Right? In this situation. Like this is, I'm sure every graphic designer has gone through this where it's like a customer asks for working files. And it's like, wow, like, it's a point of contention amongst all graphic designers. School says one thing, like experience says something else, and other designers who've been doing this forever. Like, it's like everybody tries to get this standard going. And that's a really tough thing to go through.
Yeah.
Because it's always an awkward conversation.
Yes. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Being very awkward. I mean, not to move forward too much. It's kind of common, what we do, but something like that in that situation, you created this. This is your little baby.
Well, it is, right? And I think, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, your artwork, what you create is your baby.
Yes.
Which is, hard to give up. I mean, there's so many different schools of thought on this one, right? So needless to say, her email, perfect timing, because it was like, holy shit, like this is legitimately what this topic that we're here to talk about today, right?
Yeah, and a
so
good one it is.
What we're here to talk about, to give you guys a little bit of, our experience and the overall idea, right? So you guys can make some good decisions on your own, which way you want to do this, is the topic of to give or not to give native working files to your clients.
Wait, is it Christmas? Have we been off that long?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Was
no,
that
sorry.
a Romeo and Juliet thing?
Oh,
to
yes.
be or
To
not?
be
Oh,
or
no,
not
no.
to be?
Not Romeo and Juliet. It's Shakespeare. Oh my God.
It is Shakespeare, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm dumb. I forgot which one it is, but it is Shakespeare.
That is. Oh, that's going to bug me now.
Oh, I
okay,
know,
never mind.
right?
Never mind. I'm going to get it out of my head.
Boy, do I feel like a moron right now. So needless to say, we're going to talk about a couple things, of course, like why people want them, right? The pros of giving them, points against, points for giving them, points against giving them.
Right.
Of course, the legalities in this. And then our stance and what we've done. And then, of course, you know, in the end, some tips and advice, right?
Right.
But I mean, there's no doubt that this is something that everybody kind of struggles with.
Yes.
Right. And it's not always a bad reason when customers ask for files, right? Or when you have to hand over working files, right? You know, often everybody goes to doom and gloom. Right, they go to the bad right away,
right off the bat,
and you know, and I mean, like the most common reason why people ask for files, of course, are printing files, right? We talked about this in a past episode that if you can always hand over an all-included PDF for print file.
Yep.
Problem is, if somebody needs to make changes at the print stage, if they find a typo after it's left, or they want to make it a rich black versus a regular black, and the production people saw this, they can't do that without the actual working files. Right. So often, that's a very common reason why people ask for working files, right?
Although, can you not import a PDF into Illustrator and have it just be like exactly like a
good? See, so that's a nice trick.
Okay.
Most of the time you can, if you try opening up a PDF, most of the time it can open up, into Illustrator where you can still edit it.
Yeah.
If people have outlined the fonts, you won't be able to edit
you
the
won't
fonts.
be able to. Yeah, obviously. Okay? Yeah.
But now it depends how they save the PDF. If they save the PDF, because you can flatten a PDF so it's view only, right? Kind of like you flatten it out of Photoshop. Then no, they're fucked.
Then you're screwed.
Then you're screwed. However, if they save it out of Word just as a PDF or Illustrator, yes, you can, right? Okay. But I still don't think that the printers themselves can use those files always.
No.
Okay. So, but I mean, okay, that is always the first one, right? Yeah. But some of the other reasons that make designers squirm, queasy about handing over, right? Is when the customer wants future edits, right? And they want to take care of it themselves. They'll just be like, you know what? Sometimes we might need it. It's the weekend. We don't want to bother you. Or you might not be around. You might be on holidays, this, that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they just want the ability to make edits and not bug you for all the
every little detail.
You have to understand that, we do get really fucking annoyed when it's like they ask you to change a word, a sentence, something really small. Bigger changes, fine.
Yeah,
because
okay.
You can bill for that shit. But it's hard to bill a client for like an hour's worth of work if they want to replace one sentence with a second sentence.
Yes.
Or we even had customer that was like, you know what, we need to put a registered trademark on every. Now we need a registered trademark on every word shows up in this ebook, and it's like, wow, I wish you could do that. It's just a pain in the ass job.
Yeah. Totally.
So often future edits are easy, right?
Yes.
Switching, the scary one, of course, if they're going to be switching designers, or agencies. For whatever reason, that's one of those. That's one of those ones that we don't want to happen.
Yeah, that would be a dump.
Yeah.
Like, can we have everything? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just this file.
Yeah.
Can we have all of that?
Sure,
there would be your clue right there. Is like you're getting.
Yeah, there could be a big.
One job, maybe not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to. That's a hard one for the ego to take, right? Often, right? That one's a hard one to take.
Yeah. Ooh, scary.
Another one. Internal design team wants it. Right.
Yes,
so many times designers are used as a hired guns. Okay. And again, we have this a lot, right? Where we will work with clients. Some of our clients have people in-house that can do, I wouldn't call them graphic designers, not to disrespect them by any which way.
No.
But, they know the software. They like to go in. They can make edits. They're graphic artists.
Yes.
Maybe they're desktop publishers.
Or maybe they're just, like somebody who has a brief understanding or a little bit of knowledge on the creative suite. You know what I mean?
Dude, they could even be a junior.
Yeah, totally.
It could be a junior designer looking for experience, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes they want to keep that in-house so that they can do, little edits throughout the time, as it is, right?
Yep.
But you well know that you're probably not going to be getting those requests back in the future, right?
That's true.
For sure. Cost concerns, exactly on all these points. They don't want to bother you with all the little things, so they want to have a little bit more control over their costs.
Yep.
Sometimes, even though they can't do anything with it, they just want full ownership. They want to know they have it.
Yes.
They paid for it. They want it all. They want full ownership.
I'm going to put it in my little folder on my desktop here in case.
Don't know what the hell to do with it,
but it's here. I have it.
I don't know what an ESP file format is, but I'm sure it's in that folder, right? Different applications.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes it's like they don't want you to do the rollout stuff. They'll want to take it and go from, brochure form to using it on their website, or create a digital format of it, or go from landscape. You know what I mean? Like they might have other applications for the design that you created,
Right.
And that kind of goes in line with different tech requirements that might be needed. So again, a lot of times this, comes back to not having you do all those little, minute, annoying fucking things.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's the thing too, is you get into the volume that we're doing.
Yep.
Those annoying things is death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's just
it's totally true.
Yeah. Like there's so many little things, and it's awesome to be able to say, okay, yeah, you can take this.
Totally, right? Totally.
Yeah. But if you're sitting around waiting for something like freelance, or and maybe that could be a difficult kind of thing. It's like, hey, you know what? I got time now. I could do this.
And now you're a little more right.
But
So,
it's all your perspective, right?
There's the occasion that maybe for legal or compliancy reasons.
Oh, yes.
They
Right.
need this thing, and that's
Right.
fine, right?
Right.
And then of course the worst reason that you don't want to hear. Why they want the working files is so they have the ability to switch to another designer or switch to another agency. That's the one that hurts, right? Because that's the one that we're worried about.
Yeah.
And I mean, in all fairness, it's hard to control.
Yes.
If whether they have a new marketing person that comes in, whether and they have their own marketing team,
Yep.
or I don't know, like maybe the relationship's gone sour, or what
Yeah.
have you. That's the one that you hope isn't why they want it, and I think that's the one that people hold on to the most, and why they hold on to this fight.
Yeah, as your darkness goes right to that spot.
It does. You can't help it, right?
Yeah, you can't help it.
really
They
can't
don't
help
love me
it.
because we are kind of a little insecure sometimes.
A little sensitive,
A little
maybe.
sensitive.
Holy shit.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, again, that of all that list I just gave you, right? That's like one negative, and the rest while they're not positive, they're not like all doom
They're
and
not
gloom.
terrible. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, at times, for people to make a really, 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 really big deal about this, based on those decisions, might come off the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
In some ways, they're not worth the fight.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, in some situations, they don't even want to use the files. They just want them because they paid for them and nothing else.
Exactly.
Right?
There's like some sort of ownership they have of this.
Exactly.
Like, I spent a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
I'm at least going to have it. I'm still going to come to you for the changes.
Yeah,
but,
right? And that does happen.
And that will happen.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
So of course, the big thing is then, should we or shouldn't we?
Ooh,
okay.
to
and
be
that's-
or not
and
to
then
be.
to be or not.
Hamlet.
Hamlet.
That's what it was. Yes, to give or not to give.
To be or not to be. You just had to actually use it in the right
That's
context. We're designers. We're not scholars.
We're not fucking English. I failed English. Jeez.
Dude, I failed English 4 times.
Oh.
Grade 12 English. I did.
How many times did you do it? 4 times?
12 times.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think the first time I took it, grade 12 English, I switched to a specific class, a specific teacher. She was a real hard ass.
Oh, they always are.
Oh, no. Sorry. I switched to a class because of a girl. She was in that class, and I was like, I want to hook up with that girl. And the teacher in that class was a real hard ass. She was a fucking hard ass, and it was like 2/3 of the year I couldn't get through, and I was like, you know what, I'm bouncing.
Yeah.
Because in high school it was easy to bounce.
You can just give up.
You could just give up.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah, exactly. I'm not going to be an English teacher. I don't care.
Yeah. So then I tried the next semester, right, with a different teacher.
Yeah.
And there was this
Same girl in there?
No. She was smart and she graduated. She didn't want the unscholarly designer kid. Second teacher, I couldn't pass me, right? And I was like, whoa, well, okay, I'll give it another shot with another teacher in the fall.
Yeah.
Third one, right? Because I returned for OACs anyway. Couldn't the third teacher. No, couldn't teach me. I was like, "Holy shit, something is wrong." So you know what I did?
Yeah.
And this was a huge moment in my life. I basically sucked up my pride.
Yeah.
I went back to that first asshole teacher that I told you about, the one with the hot girl in the class.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Look, you know what? I've tried this already 3 times. I can't seem to pass this.
Yeah.
You're probably the only teacher that's going to actually be hard ass enough on me that's going to make me pass." And she was, all of a sudden, it was like this whole different change in her. She's like, "All right, a challenge accepted."
Oh.
And it was, and in the end, oh my God. See, I do have teachers I love.
Yes.
In the end, she was a hard ass on me. At the end, there was this year-end project, like your capstone or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Look, I know you're a creative person, and these books, that you have to do is not your thing.
Yeah.
Let me pick 4 more for you
Yeah.
and see if any of these work. And I'll pick one for you that I think will work, right? Sure enough, she let me do it. In the end, dude, she helped me pass. And when I came back after my first year in college, she was one of the teachers I went to look for.
No.
She was, and she was a hard ass originally, but man, I owed it all.
Oh, so, wow.
I know, right?
That is amazing.
See, I don't hate teachers. I fucking love them. I just hate graphic design professors. At my
professors
college.
in graphic design, yes. But hard ass English teachers, you got a soft spot for them.
That's right. All right.
Okay,
totally we digress
sidebar there. Yes.
Okay. So points. Why? Points 4.
Yeah.
Handing over native files,
This
right?
is good.
So again, we've gone through this a lot, right? There are reasons why you should. Okay. So one of the big ones. Transparency and goodwill.
Yes.
Okay. Like, providing files to your customer, you're not holding anything back. You're kind of saying, look, I'm an open book. And if you're looking for a long-term relationship, this is probably, a really good sign that you're, here for them, not here for yourself. Right.
Yes.
And I think customers appreciate that.
Totally.
Right. Because they don't feel like there's, again, the transparency part of this is, being authentic. Like this is what we're all about right now, this whole new world.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 1. Number 2, long-term relationships.
There we go.
Okay.
Clients for life.
Clients for life. So, there's a huge case to be made for handing over files because again, it kind of goes in line with that goodwill, right? When customers come back and say, hey, could I get those files? And you're like, no, I'm a designer. And no, they're mine. They're my property.
Yeah, $500 you could have them.
Right? You're holding their job hostage.
Yeah, really,
right?
you are.
And
yes.
literally 100%. And it just creates a new barrier, and it's a hard barrier to get past.
Big time.
Once you put that one up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Flexibility for the customer, right?
Yes.
Again, reasons for it, like I just talked about. Sometimes they just want small little changes that they don't want to have to go open up a brand new ticket, have a new meeting, and something as simple as changing a sentence.
Yeah.
Takes a week long, right? They want that flexibility.
Yes.
So it's oftentimes easier to just hand that over instead of do that for you, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're going to charge an hour for the task.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just trying to fit that 1 hour task in your busy week already.
Yes.
It's such a pain in the ass.
It is very difficult.
For them too.
Yeah.
For
this
them
is, this
too.
is true. Because they got to wait, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Industry standard.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like this is becoming more and more common for people to just hand over working files.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, one of the reasons is they just might expect it because everybody else is doing it. Past designers have done it. It's slowly becoming a cadence, based on the type of people that you're working with. If you're always working for big agencies, you're never going to get those working files from the big agency. Yeah. Absolutely.
This is true.
They know that.
Yeah.
If they're working for freelancers, there's, and they have worked with other freelancers, there's a good chance that they're expecting this kind of flexibility, right? And that's one of the reasons why people go with, freelancers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And last but not least, it's the ownership. It's in the sense they paid for it. Their thought is they own it.
Yeah.
So just hand it the fuck over.
Just give it to them.
Right.
Yeah,
and again,
exactly.
they feel they have a right to the files, right? And we feel that we have a right for the files.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of, push and pull, but often, since they paid for it, that's a reason why to hand it over, right? There's not many reasons, why you should hand it over, okay?
Yeah.
But reasons why not to hand over
Can
these
I
files.
just put a footnote on that?
Sure.
If you're going to hand over your files, be profesh and name all your layers and shit like that, and do all the group stuff. You know what I mean?
Don't have their junior call you out.
That's right. Exactly. You
I
don't
know
want
I've
that.
only been a graphic designer 6 months, but this Photoshop file is horrible.
But this is the thing: is
true,
that
dude.
our main client, we have files they have their files, and they're always, our client is saying how our folders and our our Photoshop layers and files and all that are all nicely layered, whereas the other company, it's just all fucking mishmash.
It's just a mishmash.
and it's so
layer
hard to
42, layer 42 mask.
Exactly.
Oh, dude, layer 42 copy, layer 42 copy.
Yes, that's what it is. It's like, don't do that stuff if you're going to hand this over, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Now, end of rant.
End of rant there. All right.
Yeah.
So points against.
Yes.
Okay. So you don't hand over your files. There's points to this, right?
Yes. Yep.
Again,
good points.
designer integrity. Okay.
Yes.
This is a big one. So oftentimes when we create files for customers, we have this sense of pride, this ownership. We've helped build this brand. We've helped, perfect this logo mark and this and that, right? Yeah. And there's always that fear that when you hand it over to the customer and give them the working files, they're gonna fucking take free liberty and bastardize that shit, right? They're gonna sit there. You're gonna see their brand nosedive. Honestly,
exactly.
And again, this is a really, really hard thing to hand over. Like you said, these are like our children.
Yeah.
When you spend all this time and you create all these adjoining files and this and that, and you hand it over, a week or two later, you start seeing bastardized versions, or they're accompanying it with a horrible font choice or this or that. You're just like, dude, you're killing this.
Yes. In years of being the brand police.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Out the door.
And then it's all gone. And you see like 6 infractions in one piece that you've done. You're just like, what happened?
Exactly, right? So reason number 1, right? So your own integrity, the designer integrity.
Fair.
Number 2, loss of income. Okay.
Right.
You hand that shit over, right? When the customer wants to grow that project and they have the files, right? They can now, that's your money they're losing, right? They're not going to come back to you for working on that project because now they have the files. They're not going to, there's a lot that goes with it. And, not to mention that, a lot of places will charge for the working files.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
And so again, that's another lost income opportunity.
Right.
Okay. So that's a big reason why people, are all against handing over working files. It prevents plagiarism. If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's like when you're handing over a final product to somebody, right? It's done, it's intact. You have that, right? Right? All of a sudden, as soon as you start handing over working files, right? They can create variations of this. They can start plagiarizing it, create their own versions for other departments and other uses. And all of a sudden, it's like they're making all these horrible copies of what you designed.
Yes.
Okay. And again, so that's a big reason, right? Complexity of apps. Okay. Let's face it. We as designers use all kinds of fucking apps. Okay. Not only the Creative Suite, which is, you've got to pay heavy to use.
It's a big thing.
Okay. But then, between all of our web apps to get shit done and everything, clients just aren't going to fucking get it. And so this prevents all this headache from them coming back over and over and over saying, no, we need this, we need that, or I can't get this to work. Right. It's like, dude, it's because these are professional apps, right? Like our applications, we pay, $1,000 a year, $10,000 a year when you got studios. We're paying this because they're professional. It's not fucking Canva. Okay, so don't take our working files and expect that Canva is going to be able to pick them up and start deleting, working with them. Devalues the design process, right?
Yes.
When you're handing over the working files, okay,
hours of
the thought process, putting it in, and now it's like, oh look, here they all are. Okay. The final product, and they won't appreciate the process it takes to get there. They don't appreciate, what it took to get there, from the hours of troubleshooting, the layers, this, that, right? They're just going to take it, and they're just going to run with it, right? So it really devalues what we do as a designer. Okay. The intellectual property. Okay. Actually, before that, sorry. So it devalues designer. Done. Right. If the bill's not paid, okay, you don't hand over working files.
Definitely not.
Huge reason for that, right?
Yes.
And I mean, that makes sense, right? That's, I think, the biggest point against handing over any sort of working files, of course, is if they have outstanding, because once you hand over everything, the working files, the final products, you're never getting that
You're
money.
toast.
Right. And
exactly.
again, unless it's a regular client on a regular basis, you should never, ever hand over those working files.
No.
And of course, last but not least, the legalities here, the intellectual property behind what you created. Okay. Because again, as a designer, right, these are your creation. This comes from you. And the second it becomes tangible and you hand it over, right, it's your intellectual property, right? And this is actually a huge deal because, I mean, again, people always get really hung up on the legalities of this.
Right.
Okay. So the way copyright works, plain and simple, right, is as soon as something's created by a designer and is handed out in as a tangible form, the designer automatically owns the copyright authority over it. Designer, 100%.
Wow.
100%, the designer, right? So this means the designer controls the rights to use it. Okay, this means the designer can, dispute, perform, where it performs. Right? We technically own all the rights to our designs. Okay. So that's first and foremost. So even if, the client does pay for the final product, okay, let's say they paid for it, right? Like their logo, the website, right? It doesn't mean they actually own the copyright of the design. They're just using your design, okay?
Right.
And this is how big agencies actually get around all this shit, right? Because, they have the very big legal contracts to dispute this, right?
Right.
Unless there's an explicit transfer of copyright ownership for anything you create, okay?
Yeah.
You own the rights for it, not the customer, okay?
Right.
And even if, you do transfer over the ownership, okay, and now they have the rights to what you created for them, that still doesn't mean that they actually own the working files, believe it or not. The working files are a completely separate thing, right? So again, whether they decide to license it from you or whatever, right? It's technically, they're two separate things. So one doesn't have to do with the other, right? And while people do blur those lines, the reality is the copyright is for the final product,
right?
Not necessarily the working files, okay?
Oh,
so
okay.
So it's kind of crazy, right? So, whether they do or don't have ownership over those working files has to do with, the agreement you made ahead of time and what the transfer is, what the payment is and all this, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, it's completely separate than the actual copyright intellectual property. So you could argue it, right? But because it's our, how we built those files, our intellectual property, not theirs. They're buying the copyright for the final product, but we still own technically the intellectual property for how it's made.
Yes.
Okay. So now where do we stand on this? Okay. And this is the tricky part because I didn't want to necessarily give this away.
Right. Which is kind of why we're not
fishing. We're kind of going, as always, as always, we want to give you, we want to embrace critical thinking. We want you guys to think for yourself.
Yeah.
We don't want to sway you one way or another.
Yes. We don't want to tell you exactly this is how you should do it.
and exactly. And we don't want to quickly rush to how we do it.
Right.
Because then I don't want you to feel that it's biased in any way.
Right.
Right. Honestly, the point of the show is to give you the whole picture, the for, the against, right?
Yep.
Then we'll give you what we do.
Yep.
Okay. And you can decide for yourself which way you want to go. And that's how we're approaching this topic.
Yeah, that's right. Because this stuff has worked for you.
Yes.
It's not necessarily going to work for everybody.
Exactly.
This has worked.
How this approach has always worked for us.
That's right.
And take it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck with it.
That's
but
right. That's right.
Just like this morning, just like this morning's email, I gave her my opinion.
Yes.
And I was like, listen, this is how we go about it, but my stance is a lot different than yours is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the reality is my position's changed on this topic from beginning to end.
And this is exactly, I think this is the kind of the times that we're living in with this whole, the gatekeeping and
Absolutely.
Nobody's doing this kind of stuff anymore. But I continue on because this is a fascinating.
No, it's true, right?
Fascinating story.
Again, like always, when we started, nobody was really telling you much, and you had to either go by, what you hear from other designers or what your profs told you at school, right? And I mean, there wasn't many graphic magazines that would go into this kind of detail and this kind of stuff. There really wasn't. Yeah. Okay. So, obviously when we started, it was all about, oh, no. We got to keep it. We got to keep everything for ourselves.
It's yours.
It's mine.
Yes.
We've done it. We've designed it. Right. And then it's like, it was always a really stressful conversation to have, but that was our stance because we were like, no, fuck them. If we hand over our files, they're not coming back for business. We lose our money. They're going to learn our Photoshop secrets.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was such a stupid fucking stance.
I know.
That I had.
You think about it, but
it was so ridiculous. They can, and I even remember thinking this and saying this to somebody. It's like, well, I've been doing this for so many years now, and I could just hand over my Photoshop files to a junior designer and they would learn all my secrets like that. And I had to go through it. So fuck them. No, I'm not handing this. So this was before the internet because again, this was how everybody was treating me. So I became jaded like this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and then the whole point of it is, back then when we started, right, money, we were all figuring out how to make money.
Exactly.
Okay? So you made money on the design, right? You made money, didn't understand process. We didn't value the process back
it
then.
Wasn't big. Yeah.
But the tangible product was.
Right.
So we would then do the print management, right? And then we would mark that up, right? And then, so it's like, we give them the working files. Well, they can do it themselves.
Yep.
But we'll do your printing. So it's like we were almost acting like a print broker as well, right?
Exactly.
So this is how we did, right? And, after a while, it's like, it just became, being a print broker and making 15, 20, 25 points on a print job sounds good.
And
but it's such a fucking pain in the ass.
Yes, because you're on the hook for how it prints.
For everything.
You're the guy down at the press.
Right. And that's exactly it,
you
right?
know what I mean? Yes.
So and then the thing is that conversation with the customer, was always really fucking awkward. Well, no, I'm sorry, we don't hand over working files.
Right.
And customers would always be like, why not?
Yeah,
like,
it's not a big deal.
it's it's not like they can take our blueprints and resell it to somebody else and make it, or so it kind of was, and it was never a good conversation, and that conversation never ended up working out for us.
Right.
Okay, we virtually lost the client every single time.
Really?
Because we were being deemed as not only difficult but also confrontational. It was like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't like.
Interesting.
So then it was like, well, I don't want that. That's not how I treat my customers.
Yeah.
So then what we started doing is we started sliding it into the contracts. Thinking, okay, well, we'll just put it in there. We're getting smarter now.
Yeah.
We'll slide that in and we'll have it in the contract that says,
Right.
you don't get working files. You get the final product, not working files.
Right.
Okay. And, the problem is, if it ever came up in the future with the customer, right, that conversation still happened.
Right.
Okay. Even though we thought we were clever and sliding in
even though
there.
it's on paper, it's written down, it's signed.
And the worst part is, because our mentality is, well, if they want the working files, we need to renegotiate. Okay. Well, then again, it created this point, this barrier between us and the customer, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like they're saying, wait, if we want the working files afterwards, we have to pay extra for that. We're already paying for this, and in their mind, they're paying a great amount of money. And, and again, we were making it such a fucking big deal that it didn't work out for it. And then again, I had to actually think this through, and it came to the point where I realized that this isn't the relationship I wanted with my customers. I didn't want to hold my customers hostage. Okay. And this was kind of a big revelation business-wise altogether, because even in the end, we stopped doing these giant formal contracts. This is the same time we stopped doing giant formal contracts and just created a statement of work. Because I told the customer the same thing always. I said, listen, if you don't want to work with me, I don't want a piece of paper to force us to keep this relationship going. It's stupid. Go. Right. Like if I pissed you off so much and it's not working, go. Yeah. So it was almost like every contract from that point forward was more verbal agreement, gentleman's agreement, if you want to call it. Nice. And it genuinely was. It was part of our whole thing. And it was like, look, I'll outline the project. So we're very clear.
These are our steps.
But I'm not going to force you to stay with me if you don't want to stay with me. Right. So that's when our contracts changed. And then again, and I never, ever wanted to force anybody to stay with us because it's a stupid legal thing. Right. No. And that kind of came to the same point about working files. Okay. Holding working files hostage does nothing for the relationship. Okay. I guarantee you, if I kept if I held onto all those files like hostage, I wouldn't have the 20-year customers that we do right now. Right. We've got customers that have been with us for 25 fucking years. Okay. And if I was a dick about this, they wouldn't be with us. Okay. Ultimately, we had a different mentality. We were like, look, we're going to make your life so great. Customers for life. Sure. Take your files. Do what you want. Yeah. But I'm going to make your life so great that I'll take care of it for you. Right. You'll come back to me. You'll come back and if you really want us to manage the print, I'm honest with them. I'm like, okay, but we gotta mark points on top of this, and you're paying. There's no terms on if you want us to manage the print. Yeah. It just changed the relationship because now they want to keep the relationship, and we're not holding them hostage. Right. That's right. So we changed that. We changed that because again, I didn't want to get hung up. Now, one thing we always did do is we forced. We claimed ownership on everything else outside of the final design. Right. So the customer gets the final design. Yeah. If they want the working files for the final design, go ahead. I don't care. Fine. There's no way in hell they're getting the proofs, the concepts, the mock-ups, the rough work that we did.
All the stuff the proprietary stuff that you've done beforehand.
Exactly, right? So that I never gave out, right? And there's no reason why they should ask for those. No. Because again, that's unfair. That's not what they hired you for. They hired you for a final product, not for all these other things, right? So if they want the working files, take them. I don't care, right? I'm going to give you such a great job. I'm going to make you want to stay with us. The reality is, it's like they paid us for it. Yeah. Right? What do you think they're paying us for?
This is exactly it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like, don't be stupid about this and hold your job hostage. Yeah. Give them the logo. If you give it to them as an EPS, they can do whatever the fuck they want with it from that point forward. Yeah. Let's face it, these days, they could take your flat copy and have it recreated by somebody on Fiverr and then badmouth you for it. Like, there's no reason in this world not to, right? Yeah. And again, people talk about the ethics behind this. I think the ethics have swung the other other way.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you know, it's horrible when agencies hold files hostage to customers because they're not doing anything. I don't give a shit about it, you know. And ethically, it's wrong. You know what? It's not wrong because you're thinking of yourself, not the fucking customer.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, sometimes designers are far too precious about their own work. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, I'm doing this. This is awesome. I love this piece, but it's not for me.
No.
It's not mine.
Yes.
It belongs to the client.
So, you know, I'm thrilled that the customer comes to us and asks us to create awesome shit for them time and time again.
Yes.
But it's their stuff. They're paying me to design them. I was really happy to hear, like, when we interviewed Aaron Draplin. He said the same thing. He's like, I don't fucking care. He goes, they're hiring me to create this for them. I'm going to give it, like, he is.
You get the whole thing.
The king is asking. He says it. So who are we, his loyal subjects?
That's exactly
to
it.
say anything else.
I know. If it's good enough for him, it's fucking good enough for me.
Right? If Draplin is handing over these files because he says the customer's paying for them, they're his. What, like, seriously? And again, and so it's just a silly argument to have, right? So, you know, my attitude is charge appropriately. Okay. If you are really hung up on this whole idea of, you know, they're my files and I have to take, then fuck, charge, hand them over, give them to them, right? Charge extra for that if you're going to have an issue with it. But you have to get in the mindset that it's just whether you're handing those files over or whether they're getting them recreated somewhere else, which is going to lead to the better relationship with the customer. And that was my, I want to eliminate any point of friction with our customers. And this is why our customers have stuck around as long as they have.
That's right. That's right.
So, you know, give them those stupid files. They mean nothing to me. I'm not going to go and reuse them next year.
That's exactly it. I'm not reappropriating and changing the fucking, you know, like,
however, I may reuse a mock-up or one of the other concepts and repurpose those and be like, hey, I remember I did something like this for that job. I think I might be able to reuse it.
I can use that, and it might very well be a better application.
Absolutely.
Because this is why it didn't get picked, because it probably didn't work, but now you've got it, and you can kind of fine tune it. A funny story. Our major client, they were asking for an InDesign file. And I was like, yeah, sure. They're going to make changes. Send them off to them. An hour later, I got it back saying, yeah, can you do these changes? So there is something to be said about your skill set.
Exactly.
And when somebody gets into one of these files, it can look, there may not be as 100% as, you know, what they're,
you can give them. The file doesn't mean that they can use them.
Exactly. It's like, they'll look at this and it's like, wow, this is kind of a daunting thing because of the expertise that was going into it.
Exactly.
And this is what you've been doing for years and years. And your skill set has culminated to this. Not everybody's going to be able to kind of translate that and make it work.
And then you know what happens there? That just brings your value up to them.
Because they go.
But now imagine if you were
I'm sending this back to Z Factor.
Now imagine you send an email saying, well, you know, it's our process here. We do not hand over working files. You'll have to, you know what's going to happen?
You look like
you're going to look like an asshole. The person who gets that email, you know, they're not going to be like, oh, okay. They're going to take it to their boss and be like, can you believe this shit? Or they're going to take it to other people, and your name, you will develop such a shitty name for yourself as a fucking entitled designer. And that's what you don't want.
No, you don't want that. You don't want to bend over backwards, which we never do, but also something like that, I have no problem with that.
Exactly. So that's our stance on this. Doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it. And fine, agencies, if they figure out ways on how to hold files hostage and keep making them, I think it's a horrible way to do business. But that's their prerogative. You know, other people might be a little bit more hung up on legalities and intellectual property, but again, we're getting paid to do this shit. Okay?
That's right.
Either way, the reality is it's your duty as a designer to be very explicit and upfront about this with customers, right? This shit needs, this isn't a discussion that needs to happen after the project.
No.
This discussion needs to happen, you know, before and during all the paperwork. So make sure, you know, absolutely, first and foremost, you know, you're very clear about, you know, the deliverables they're going to get, you know, what exactly they're going to get, and, you know, when payment. This is just as important as, you know, your payment terms. Okay.
Totally.
And again, you know, that copyright assignment is also very important. Okay. Because believe it or not, without actually handing over that copyright assignment, you know, you technically could own that forever. But there's something else, and I'm going to mention it after, but there is another problem by you constantly holding on to that copyright as well. There is a problem towards that, right?
okay.
But before we get to that, right, the reality is the customer should have a right, since they're paying you for this job, you know, to know upfront what is owing of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to if you do end up, you know, handing these over, or even if you don't, okay, there's a saying here at Z Factor that we do and we abide by it, and it's cover your ass. Okay? CYA. Okay? Cover your ass. You know, first off, you know, if you are going to hand over your working files, okay? First off, if you are going to hand over your working files, just remember, technically, depending on what font you use in there, you can't share fonts. Otherwise, you could get pinched royally. So first and foremost, so if it's a font that you have commercial rights to, but the customer doesn't, and you don't forget, you can actually build something with virtually any font online because you're delivering them a final product, and then it's not a font; it becomes an image.
Right.
But if you take that font and share that font, okay, you could get pinched on that. Yeah, because there's a huge legality there when it comes to that.
Wow.
Also, image licensing, believe it or not, right? Now, granted, image people are getting a lot more, thrifty with their images. You're getting them on free sites and stuff like on Splash and such. But image licensing, okay, is another big thing that technically you can't just take it and hand it over, okay, unless it's part of the commercial agreement. So make sure if you are going to hand over all the working files, this does not apply for printing working files.
Oh, okay.
Okay, like if you're doing something for print and for press, in theory, you should be getting that back, or they should be deleting it afterwards.
Right.
This
right.
is
Not
if
using
you,
it for something else.
Correct. If you hand over working files to customers, okay, make sure you cover your ass with the legalities behind the images you use, behind the fonts you use, and now the copyright. Okay, so this was the thing I mentioned before. The big thing about the copyright, okay, is you're right. If you don't hand over or transfer the copyright to the customer, right, it's ours and forever. That you can have a logo out there from somebody for 20 years and you technically own the copyright for it, right?
Yeah.
Not that you would go back and screw the customer. However, the one thing is, if you transfer the copyright to the customer, it absolves you of any future issues that might come out of that logo, right? And because the client assumes, that logo and the responsibilities for it thereafter. So if there's ever anything that comes associated with your logo, heaven forbid, let's say, 10 years from now, NBC comes and they're like, no, that's our fucking logo, right? We designed that, right? And you copied us. So we're coming after you for copyright infringement. If you don't assign that to them, okay, you're liable. Hey, it's yours. Wow. So it does nothing to hand over that there's a million different simple little templates that you can just fill out and the customer would be like, here you go. Here's your logo. Here's your brand guideline. And here is your legal copyright transfer. All of a sudden customers are like, damn, that's bank, yo. Seriously, huge difference. It's a huge thing. You got to remember, it elevates you to a new level, but it also gets rid of any sort of responsibilities. Heaven forbid if something comes back, right? And again, not that anybody is directly copying shit out there, but you see it all the time, right? You see look at the Airbnb logo, okay? We can find a logo from 50 years ago, identical to it. Okay, so this shit happens. So, be sure to transfer that copyright ownership as part of your whole process.
Right.
So,
and don't copy shit.
Don't copy shit. Don't be one of those designers.
Be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So and that was what I told our friends.
Okay, I was just going to ask you. So that was so. How did you resolve that?
I was completely. I said, listen, this is point of contention. Always been a point of contention. I've gone from one way or another. And I was pretty honest. I said, listen, I don't know about your business. If the actual printed material is part of it or not.
Right.
But in our experience, trying to manage the print for an extra few points wasn't, worth it. And in the end, we're happy to give things over. Okay. Because we're looking for the long-term relationship. And by holding files hostage, that just right off the bat, it's tension. And you can kiss that relationship goodbye. And she replied saying, thanks. I really appreciated that. And she's like, you know what? I realized that. I thought about that. She did have a bad experience where somebody took the working files and never called back, promised everything. And shit, that's happened to us at the beginning. It did. It absolutely did. But she did say that this customer is somebody that there's a lot more future work potential. And, this would be more, like I said, a sign of goodwill.
Yes.
Right.
This is a good thing.
So I think in the end, and so again, it's normal to be burned in this space. We all get burned.
A lot of this is a learning process.
It
you
is,
know,
it
like
is.
how many times does that happen to you? You know, us.
It's true.
Like,
It's true.
Yeah, these things happen.
But it's that whole, you know, what's your point of view? What's your long-term goal here? And my long-term goal, where I realized this was affecting, was the long-term relationships I was looking for my customers.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I was stressed. So by doing this, it wasn't helping that.
Yes.
Right. Just like other things, like sending them timely files or making sure you meet your deadlines. There's a whole bunch of ways on how to keep a customer happy. This was just one of those.
Yeah,
but this was a big one. This was a big one that made them frown when they had to kind of go through it.
And you know, the irony is like, if you're decent to the customer and you do stuff like that, they'll remember. Like, they're not dirtbags. You know what I mean? They'll remember that and they'll go back to you because, hey, you know what? That guy was a pretty decent dude. And that was kind of cool. If you cut him off right off the bat and say, nope, you don't get anything.
You might not get anything from
then
that
you're
guy.
like, well, is this worth pursuing a relationship with this guy?
Exactly.
No.
The reality is, okay, if you hand over working files and that person never comes back because now I have them. I have them. You know what?
Yeah.
They were going to screw you for something bigger later on.
That's right.
Because if they're never coming back, because now they have the keys to the kingdom, right? Or keys to the castle, or whatever the fuck that saying is. It's just like, dude, it's like you're gone anyway. So you're better off to get rid of those people.
Get rid of that person. Yeah. Just let that go.
Let it go and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Because you weren't going to make any money off it anyway.
You weren't, not a penny. They sit back with their evil laugh.
We have his InDesign files. How the fuck do you work this?
Oh shit!
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, again, I hope you guys got something out of this because I mean, you know, this is how we go about it. I'm not saying this is how it's always been done here. I started the other train of thought
the other way. Yeah,
I am so glad to have embraced this new way of thinking and going. And we've been doing this for probably about 10 years now.
Yeah.
But the stress that came down.
Yes.
You know, the just the relationships have gone up.
Yes.
Right. And it's not even a big deal anymore. It's like just fucking hand. Again, I won't hand over like the mock-ups or the other concepts they didn't choose.
No. Yeah.
Because you know what, we can reuse them possibly.
Yes.
We might use them for inspiration, and they're not paying for 5-10 concepts.
Exactly,
they're paying for a finished product.
Right.
Okay.
That's
so I'm happy to hand that over. And it's an easier way to work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and just from where our perspective is with being a high volume shop.
Yep.
We would be dead.
Can you imagine trying to manage that?
There'd be 100 people working here if we didn't give them the files.
Oh God. Yeah.
So I thank God we do that.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
It is a great idea. Yes, definitely.
All right.
Really good. That was great.
All right, buddy. I think that was okay. Eh?
Yeah, totally.
I hope so.
Totally.
And I hope our friend from our email, I hope it works out for her, and I hope she gets a ton of awesome
hope so too.
work out of this customer. That this is the right way.
Good for you.
Good for you. Good for you.
Good for you.
All right. Yeah. I think that's it, buddy.
Yeah. Good job.
All right, everybody. By all means, if you got something out of this, please share it with somebody you love or hate. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Great conversations are happening. Please don't be scared to reach out directly on our website. Most of the time we get back. Sometimes we get bombarded. But we try really hard, so don't hold it against us, right? and I mean, we're available on Apple, Spotify, and if you can, leave us a review.
Yeah.
Those things actually help.
Yeah.
And, it helps us kind of get out there with everybody else.
Exactly.
And it feels really good.
Which we like to do, yes.
I think so. It's
we want to be out
cool,
there.
Isn't it? Want to be out there. All right, everybody.
Yes.
My name is Massimo.
My name is Sean.
Stay creative.
And stay angry.
Peace.